and the deep, tangled hollows of East Tennessee, where the mountains breathe like sleeping giants and long-forgotten dirt roads twist through forests older than memory, there came a summer day that would forever stain the silence of these hills. A day when an innocent child vanished, as if swallowed by the earth itself, leaving behind a town frozen in confusion, terror, and unrelenting grief. From the moment her name was spoken into the trembling air, a search unlike anything this region had witnessed sprang to life, with volunteers pouring out of their homes and vehicles lining the narrow ridges, helicopters sweeping across open fields and dense canopy, search dogs pacing the ground with urgent determination, and investigators following every track, every call, every whisper that might reveal where a little girl could have disappeared in a matter of minutes. And yet, even as hundreds combed ravines, creek beds, abandoned outbuildings, and the vast maze of rural land that stretched far past Ben Hill Road, the search returned nothing but the sound of boots on leaves and the aching quiet of a child missing, without explanation. As the first days bled into nights, and the nights bled into weeks, the official investigation grew deeper, expanding into a labyrinth of timelines that didn't align, statements that shifted like mist, and possibilities as endless as the mountains themselves. Detectives worked relentlessly, mapping out movements, interviewing neighbors, retracing steps through long gravel driveways, confronting a terrain filled with sinkholes, wells, old barns, hidden trails, and miles of private properties where the truth could be concealed beneath decades of forgotten objects and overgrowth. Rumors ignited like brush fire, spreading through small towns and online spaces, turning neighbors into theories, acquaintances into suspects, and every innocuous moment into a potential clue. While families fractured under the pressure of scrutiny, communities whispered behind closed doors, and the rolling hills of Tennessee became a battleground between fact and speculation. The internet erupted with people dissecting every detail, arguing over timelines, pointing fingers at familiar names, digging into property records, and scouring maps for connections that might not exist, creating a storm of noise that investigators begged the public to ignore, even as they themselves followed real leads into remote corners, wooded parcels, and lonely stretches of land where no one would hear a cry for help. And still, despite all efforts, the child remained missing. As seasons changed, and the case reached deeper into the bones of the Appalachian landscape, a new wave of investigative activity drew attention. Unmarked vehicles appearing along the winding isolation of Van Hill Road, a place steeped in its own history, where dense forests press in tight, and every home seems to watch the road with silent suspicion. Here, detectives searched, sifted, walked properties, and followed information the public would never see, a reminder that even years later, the truth had not been abandoned, but pursued with renewed intensity, that somewhere within these hills there is an answer buried beneath fear, silence, or deception. While the community feels the weight of uncertainty heavier with each passing year, one thing remains unchanged: the small echo of a child's presence, lingering in every searcher's memory, in every investigator's notebook, in every tremble of wind across these haunted acres, her name drifting through the valleys like a plea that refuses to fade. In the quiet hours of early morning, when fog clings to the road and the air grows thick with the kind of stillness that makes the heart beat louder, one can almost sense her, waiting in the space between what is known and what is hidden, calling out not just to be found, but to be understood, to be reclaimed from the shadows that have held her for far too long. And as the investigation continues, through tips, through searches, through the unwavering determination of those who refuse to let her be forgotten, the mountains stand guard, bearing witness to all that has happened and all that remains concealed, their ancient silence holding secrets that stretch far beyond one tragic disappearance. But even in this darkness, even in the vast uncertainty that cloaks every unanswered question, one truth rings clear across the ridgelines. Her little soul still cries out for justice, for light to break through the heavy veil of mystery, and for someone, somewhere, to finally speak the truth that will bring her home and end the long, aching shadows cast over the hills of Tennessee. In the ancient, suffocating hollows of East Tennessee, where the mountains rise like jagged black silhouettes against a dying sky, and the woods whisper with secrets older than any living soul, the silence was split one summer afternoon when a small child vanished into the thick, unforgiving wilderness, leaving behind no footprints, no sound, no struggle, only a chilling absence that seeped into the soil and settled like a curse over the land. From that moment on, the ridges, ravines, and tangled underbrush carried the weight of something unspeakable, as if the earth itself swallowed the truth and refused to release it. And as search crews poured into the area, fanning out across dirt roads, climbing unstable slopes, turning over rotting boards in abandoned outbuildings, and pushing through thorn-thick brush that tore at their clothes and skin, a suffocating dread hung over every step, a sense that the woods were watching, listening, hiding something that didn't want to be found. The sun rose and fell, day after day, casting long, skeletal shadows across Ben Hill Road and the narrow, winding stretch of Van Hill Road, where investigators would later return again and again, drawn back as though the land itself murmured to them through the trees, leading them toward answers that stayed forever just out of reach. Dogs caught phantom scents that vanished like breath in cold air. Helicopters circled above treetops that shivered in the wind, and volunteers shouted the child's name into a void that swallowed their voices whole. Weeks passed, then months, then years, and the town twisted under the unbearable weight of suspicion, neighbors eyeing each other with quiet fear, families whispering behind shuttered windows, old friendships fracturing under the pressure of unanswered questions, and the internet, hungry for tragedy, spiraled into a frenzy of theories, accusations, and shadow chasing that drowned out the faint hum of reality. People dissected every moment, every timeline, every name, every distant rumor, weaving a tapestry of darkness so vast it seemed to engulf the truth entirely. And through it all, investigators worked in silence, pushing down roads lined with rusted trailers, dilapidated barns, collapsed cellars, forgotten wells, and ancient woods where daylight could barely penetrate, their flashlights sweeping over the remnants of lives long abandoned. When unmarked vehicles appeared along Van Hill Road, crawling slowly down the broken asphalt toward isolated properties and deep woods thick with secrets, the atmosphere grew heavier, darker, as if the mountains were holding their breath. Detectives stepped out, boots sinking into damp earth, and the wind rustled the leaves with an almost deliberate whisper, as though trying to warn them or beckon them deeper. Night after night, the hills grew darker still, the fog thickening until headlights could barely cut through it, turning every hollow and bend into a place where anything at all, could remain hidden. Locals spoke in hushed tones about the feeling that something was wrong on those ridges, something ancient and unkind, something that fed on secrets and silence. And as investigators revisited old leads, followed new whispers, and traced paths across land that seemed determined to keep its mysteries buried, the sense of dread only grew. The mountains felt alive, restless, as though they remembered what happened, even if no living person would speak it aloud. But the greatest darkness did not come from the woods or the mountains. It came from the not knowing, the endless nights when a child's absence screamed louder than any storm, the hollow ache of questions with no answers, the shadow that stretched over every home, every road, every whispered conversation in the dead of night. And yet, beneath all that darkness, beneath the rumors and theories and searching that seem to lead nowhere, there lingers a presence that refuses to fade. The faint echo of a small voice drifting through the valleys, a tiny soul wandering the liminal space between memory and mystery, calling out not just to be found, but to be acknowledged, to be rescued from the suffocating silence that has swallowed her story whole. Even now, as years slip by like dead leaves carried downstream, that voice rises through the shadows, soft but unyielding, a plea that threads itself through the mountains and slips under doors and curls through the quiet rooms of those who still remember. A plea for truth, for justice, for the darkest corners of this mystery to finally be dragged into the light, and for the long-buried secrets of these haunted Tennessee hills to release her, so she can finally come home. In the darkest corners of the human psyche, far from the eyes of the town that still whispers her name, the parents in this tale move through their days with a hollow ease that chills the bone, smiling for neighbors, laughing at small talk, pretending their hands are clean, while the truth rots just beneath their skin. For they know, deep down where conscience once lived, that their child was not taken by chance or stolen by fate, but traded away into the shadows of men who deal in lost innocence, and yet they show no tremor, no grief, no remorse. Instead, they rise each morning as if nothing has been ripped from the fabric of their lives, brewing coffee, tending chores, scrolling through their phones as though their daughter's absence is no heavier than a forgotten chore, while the mountains around them remember everything, the ridges holding the echo of her small cry, the hollows swallowing the remnants of her fear, the wind itself seeming to recoil from the quiet sickness that festers behind their practiced smiles. They walk through town with an ease that unsettles even the ground beneath their feet, their eyes dull and unbothered, as though whatever soul once lived behind them has been traded too, leaving behind only puppets wearing human faces, pretending at normalcy, pretending they are victims instead of architects of unthinkable betrayal. And in that pretense lies the deepest horror of all, not the crime itself, but the way they carry it, the way they sleep soundly, while a child's spirit wanders the earthly hollow where innocence goes to die, her tiny voice tugging at the fabric of the world, calling out long after the living have grown comfortable with her silence, calling out as if hoping that somewhere, someone still remembers her beyond the twisted performance of the ones who should have protected her, but instead let her slip into darkness without a backward glance.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Please keep praying for Summer, Moon, Utah Wells. Goodbye for now.